Well, this week, the week of August 19th, 2024, and today I think is actually the 24th, we have been through a banner week on all kinds of news stories coming out about the Shroud of Turin. And it's most of them coming out of the United Kingdom. And the first one that makes its rounds was this one. These are archaeology breakthrough as scientists prove Jesus' burial cloth is real. Well, that may be a little overstatement, but another version of the same article, which was on Fox Digital. Researchers make new finding on Turin's shroud that many believe was Christ's burial cloth. Mysteries of God. Well, so what was that all about? Well, as most of you who know anything about the shroud know, that the shroud was carbon dated in 1988 by three different carbon dating labs, with a stated date of between 1260 and 1390. And this has come under much challenge in the ensuing years, to the point now where we pretty sure that dating is inconclusive and it doesn't jive historically with the shroud. We know for a fact now that the shroud was in Constantinople in 1204 and stolen during the Fourth Crusade. Well, 1204 is already older than the oldest carbon date of 1260, and it didn't just get there. It had been there for hundreds of years, and historically we know it arrived there in 944. So just historically, we know that the carbon date is just wrong. And now what this research shows, using a new technique called wide-angle X-ray scattering, this measures the amount of natural aging found in fibers of various cloths, linen and cotton and wool. And so by analyzing the amount of natural aging found in fibers from the shroud, they compare it with the amount of aging in other cloths of a known age. They have about a dozen samples from the current era, 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, all the way back to 5,000 years old. And they date these cloths either from their historical context or from carbon dating. And they determined that the amount of natural aging found in fibers from the shroud, it makes it far older than just 700 years, as the carbon date would indicate. And in fact, they had a cloth sample from Masada, which dates from 55 AD to 74 AD, somewhere in that range, and that had the comparable amount of aging that we see on fibers from the shroud. So just by comparison, it would indicate that the shroud probably dates to first century, and that's really big news. And since the dating of the cloth has been such a matter of controversy over the years, and there's been no attempt to date it again, so we have to look at these other methodologies to try to figure out just how old this cloth may be. And then there was another article that came out looking at some of the blood chemistry, looking at blood particles on the shroud, analyzing them under modern new space state of the art microscopes with and they found particles of two blood components, creatine and ferritin, which are basically substances that are released into the blood during conditions of stress or during or the result of forceful trauma. I think crucifixion would probably qualify on both counts. So there's some interesting blood chemistry coming out. And then there was this very interesting article that also came out just this past week about the atheist movie maker back in the late 70s. His name was David Rolfe. He's made over 90 documentaries during his life, and he became convinced over the years that the shroud was most likely authentic. In fact, he became so convinced that it was authentic that he even issued a $1 million challenge to the British Museum. Now, this was done in concert with the release of his movie, his documentary called "Who Can He Be?" And so this challenge was originally issued to the British Museum, and the British Museum oversaw all of the carbon dating tests, the 3 different laboratories involved in the carbon dating, and he issued this challenge that we'll put up $1 million for anyone who can replicate the Shroud image. You know, we have about 7 or 8 points of criteria, where they have to match. In other words, you have to come up with something that certainly matches what we see on the Shroud. Remember, the Shroud, there is no artistic substances on the cloth to account for the image. There's no paint, ink, dye, or pigmentation or stain, and so and you have a whole pattern of blood stains. And it's but if someone could believably and match what we see on the Shroud using artistic techniques found in the 14th century, can't use a laser. They didn't have lasers back then, but if you can recreate the Shroud image using art substances and techniques common to the Middle Ages, and then there's $1 million for you. Well, no one ever took David Rolfe up on the challenge with the British Museum. That was a couple years ago, and then earlier this year, in January of this year, 2024, they issued another release to the United States, and this is what this article is all about: is that challenge has come to an end. It's closed out, and there were no challenges. No one decided to take up that challenge of trying to replicate the Shroud, because this is an important thing. Is because the naysayers, those that would say that the Shroud is nothing more than some kind of medieval fake or forgery, they just say, oh, some artist just, got a piece of cloth and, faked it up and flogged it. That's what Teddy Hall of the Oxford lab said. Well, if it's that easy, well, then there was, how come they didn't come forward and grab their $1 million? So it's not nearly as easy as you think, because there is that either or proposition, and either is authentic or it's not. And if it's not, then it must be the work of an artist, and yet there's no artistic substances on the cloth to account for the image, nor is there any discernible process that this alleged artist used. So it's a little challenging. And then the last article that came out this past week is this applying artificial intelligence to maybe figure out what Jesus looked like. And this is called "The Face of Jesus Unveiled by AI Using Shroud of Turin After Astonishing Discovery." And so this is I have no idea if this is what Jesus looked like, but this, according to this article, is what Jesus looked like based on artificial intelligence. And I have, and maybe not based on the Shroud, but also, AI will gather all kinds of other images, probably paintings and things like that. But again, it's a fascinating thing. It just shows you how much interest there is in the Shroud, because could this linen shroud be the actual burial shroud of Jesus? And it's and things are seemingly pointing more and more in that direction. And now I want to show you one last thing. I would be remiss if I didn't plug my own book, just out, published by Covenant Books, Shroud Encounter, Explore the World's Greatest Unsolved Mystery. Spent many years on this. It's 256 pages, so it's not you're not going to spend a year reading it, and it's got 75 images in it, so I really recommend it. And you'll go through we'll go through a summary of the science and the history, and explore many areas of the Shroud that we've just talked about, and even more, such as how Hitler tried to steal the Shroud in 1943. So hope you can pick it up. It's sold on you can buy it on my website, shroudencounter.com. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on Barnes & Noble. And the price point is very reasonable. reasonable. So I hope you check it out. And so thanks for tuning in.